This is part 2 of a 2-part mini lecture on organic functional groups. Ethers occur when an oxygen is embedded within the interior of a carbon chain. The name comes from the 2 carbonyl groups coming off of that oxygen. The first example has a methyl group on both sides of the oxygen. It is called dimethyl ether. The second has an ethyl group on both sides of the oxygen. It is called diethyl ether. The third has an ethyl on one side and a methyl on the other side of the oxygen. It is called ethyl-methyl ether. Ethyl comes before methyl because you alphabetize the functional groups by name, not by Greek prefix. An aldehyde occurs when a carbon chain ends with a carbon that has a double bonded oxygen and 1 hydrogen. The name is taken from the length of the chain of carbons, which always begin with the carbonyl carbon. A carbonyl carbon is one with a carbon double bonded O bond. From left to right, we see chains of 1, 2, and 3 carbons. These are named methanal, ethanal, and propanal, respectively. The last has 4 carbons in the chain, but also a methyl attached to carbon number 2. It is called 2-methyl-butanal. A carboxylic acid is a carbon chain which ends with a carbon that has a double bonded oxygen and a hydroxyl group. The suffix for carboxylic acids is oic acid. The numbering of the carbons always begins at the carbonyl carbon. The top left molecule has 4 carbons. It is named butanoic acid. The top right has 3 carbons. It is called propanoic acid. The bottom left has 5 carbons and a methyl group attached to carbon 2. It is called 2-methyl-pentanoic acid. The bottom right has 3 carbons with a chlorine attached to the third carbon. It is called 2-chloropropanoic acid. Remember, the numbering of the carbons begins with the carbonyl carbon. Esters have a carbonyl carbon attached to an oxygen with a single bond, and the oxygen is attached to an alkyl group. Esters have 2 word names. The first word is the name of the alkyl group. The alkyl group is attached to the oxygen, which bifurcated the carbon chain with a single bond. The second word of the name of the ester has a prefix set by the number of carbons in the chain, which starts at the carbonyl carbon, and a suffix of -oate. Beginning at top left, the carbonyl chain has 3 carbons, and the alkyl group has 2. This is called ethyl propanoate. The top right molecule has only 1 carbon in the carbonyl chain and a propyl group for its alkyl chain. It is called propyl methanoate. The middle left molecule has 4 carbons in its carbonyl chain and a methyl for its alkyl group. It is called methyl butanoate. The middle right molecule has 2 carbons in its carbonyl chain and a propyl for its alkyl group. It is called propyl ethanoate. Then the bottom molecule has 6 carbons in its carbonyl chain and an ethyl for its alkyl group. It is called ethyl hexanoate. A couple of things to remember about esters. Number 1, do not forget to include the carbonyl carbon in the number of carbons in the main chain. And number 2, even if the alkyl group is longer than the carbonyl chain, the alkyl group is still in the first word of the name. Amines are hydrocarbons which have A nitrogen attached to a carbon by a single bond. The nitrogen can be attached to 1, 2, or 3 carbon chains. The carbon chains become alkyl groups in the name as prefixes, and the ending of the name is amine. The first amine here is a methane, which has one hydrogen replaced with NH2. It's called methylamine. There is only one carbon chain connected to the hydrogen, therefore it is a primary amine. The second amine has 2 methyls and 1 hydrogen attached to the nitrogen. It is called dimethylamine. There are 2 carbon chains attached to the nitrogen, therefore it is a secondary amine. The third amine has a nitrogen with 3 methyls attached. It's called trimethylamine. There are 3 carbon chains attached to the nitrogen, therefore it is a tertiary amine. If the carbon chains attached to the nitrogen are of different lengths, be sure to alphabetize them according to alkyl names in the prefix. Amides are hydrocarbons which have a carbonyl carbon attached to a nitrogen. The suffix is set by the length of the carbon chain that begins with the carbonyl carbon. If the nitrogen has 2 hydrogens attached, it is a primary amide. If it has 1 hydrogen attached, it is a secondary amide. If it has no hydrogens attached, then it is a tertiary amide. The top left amide has 3 carbons in the chain beginning with the carbonyl carbon, and the nitrogen has 2 hydrogens attached. It is called propanamide. The top right amide has 4 carbons in the carbonyl chain with a bromine attached to carbon 2, and the nitrogen has 2 hydrogens attached. It is called 2-bromobutanamide. The bottom left amide has 4 carbons in the carbonyl chain, and the nitrogen has 1 hydrogen and an ethyl group attached. It is called N-ethylbutanamide. Because the ethyl is attached to a nitrogen and not a carbon, we do not give it a number. We specify that it is attached to the nitrogen with a capital N dash instead. The bottom right amide has 3 carbons in the carbonyl chain, and the nitrogen has 2 methyl groups attached. It is called N,N-dimethylpropanamide. This has been part 2 of your mini lecture over organic functional groups. Please go now and complete any associated homework assignments. If you run into confusion, please do not hesitate to ask for help. Help is always available.